Iglooghost is a producer currently signed to Brainfeeder Records. He's had quite a few EPs at this point, but my first exposure to the guy was with his album last year, Neo Waxbloom, an album which seemed on the surface like the sound binge bait, if you will. It was like this maximalist, wonky drum and bass type album that was incredibly bombastic, incredibly detailed, and I ended up not being the biggest fan. Don't get me wrong though, I respect the guy as a producer. He's clearly very talented. I just think it suffered from quite a bit of redundancy in the song structures, the tone of the drums, the vocal chipmunking that was used to death. He kind of reminds me of like Sophie, if Sophie had the technical ability but not the strategy, just in terms of like where her music erupts and where it plays it low-key, and also without the versatility. Like after a song or two, we already know the extent of his abilities in a project like this, so it's not necessary to continue to shove it in our face full force for the rest of the album. Still, projects like this can kind of be a nice challenge, picking away new things from the production with each listen. There is always something new to discover. I guess it just depends on what you're trying to get out of the music. And to be honest, I've come away from these two EPs, especially Steel Mogu, feeling pretty similarly. I mean, I do like the fact that we're getting a little bit more variation in the vocal effects and the samples, and with any project like this, there are subtle details that kind of separate one track from another, but I just wish there were more distinctly memorable moments here. It's also worth mentioning that if we zero in on the artist's intent here, there is a visual narrative element to this as well. This introduces us to the characters in question for the events in the dimension Mamu 3,000 years before Neo Waxbloom took place. I feel like knowing that detail is especially beneficial in the case of Clear Tamei, which does feel like it has more distinct changes in sound. It's like this classically influenced playground of sound with still a very hypnotic and chilling edge overshadowing the whole thing. New vectors on this thing is a clear highlight. It has these glimmering synth melodies and some strings, which is a clear component of the soundscape on this EP, as well as some drum machines which don't feel nearly as cutthroat as usual. And then the title track builds on the very strange and disorienting vocals at the end of that track, and I especially love the minute 15 mark of this song with the descending arpeggio and the vocals and the weeping strings that then is followed by an eruption of drums. I feel like this moment is a great example of a defining moment in a track that feels genuinely memorable. I also enjoyed the next track. It has some genuinely strong melodies as well as flutes, although I wish that those were kind of brought more to the forefront of the production so they were more distinctly noticeable. However, I don't know why Shrine Hacker had that complete 180 in sound tacked onto the end of it. It felt pretty unnecessary on a track that already felt inessential to the project on the whole. When it comes to Steel Mogu, there are quite a few moments which fizzle pleasantly but don't really come close to standing out as a highlight in the guy's catalog, like the title track or Blacklight Ultra, which actually samples Ain't It Funny by Danny Brown, which is awesome, but I feel like where that came in should have marked a more earth-shattering moment for the cut, but the momentum is kind of just killed soon after, which is a shame. And then there are some genuinely transcendent moments in the track My Mode. I like all those twitchy melodies and the very hypnotic moment it closes out with, and the following track is a little smoother, a little more skittish, and overall I dig the sound play here. But again, I feel like these tracks set up a great sense of anticipation but then fail to actually satisfy and just come across as a bit hollow to me. But I still would check into this guy's back catalog if you're into these very flashy and challenging styles of production. Lots of people seem to really love him. I just don't know how personally invested I am. So I'm feeling about a 6 on Steel Mogu and a 7 on Clear Tamei. Thank you so much for watching my review, and I will see you in the next one.